That's a lovely brew. Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. This week I'm going to be showing you how to turn this used tea bag into a bit of foliage, and we're going to turn it into a lovely autumnal tree. So come on, let's go down to the workbench and I'll show you how it's done. So obviously we're going to start off with a pile of used tea bags, and I'm going to take a baking tray and gently tear those tea bags open, just spreading out the leaves inside over and over the baking tray, getting ready to eventually put them in the oven to dry. Now you can get quite a lot of tea in a couple of tea bags. I think I've got together about 8 or 9 or so. So once you've got them spread out onto the baking tray, we can go and stick it into the oven for a while. And with the magic of time, this is the tray after I've given it about half an hour in the oven on a low setting. It's nice and dry now, and it's got a lovely kind of powder to it. So next I'm going to tip those dried tea leaves into a plastic container using a sieve. We'll just gently sieve out the smaller particles, and we should get quite a lot out of this, and the excess I'll just put to one side, maybe to use later on. And we do end up with quite a lot of tea after we've sieved it all out. This is just a quick edit just to slip between the two. As you can see, quite a lot of tea in that tub. And now I'll just get 3 little pots, and I'm going to separate those tea leaves into 3 using these 3 colours. I've got a green there and a sort of medium orange and a dark orange. I'll just put a bit of colour into each of these tubs. These are quite bright colours to start off with, but after they've been mixed with the tea leaves and dried out in the oven, they'll be quite muted down. Now I'm going to mix those tea leaves into the paint colours, just a generous handful scoop into each pot. We don't really want to mix a lot just yet, but you can mix as much or as little as you want. And now I'm going to introduce just a little bit of moisture into each one, just to let the paint run a little bit more smoothly throughout. Give each of those pots a thorough stir to get the colour mixed in there. Like I said, these colours are quite vivid at the moment. They're a nice bright orange autumnal looking colour. When we bake it down, it's going to reduce down a little bit. So we'll just carry on mixing. This is the medium orange. It looks quite a bright orange now. Yeah, give it a thorough stir, and then onto the green just to finish off. And at this point it's an experiment mixing with quantities here, just adding a little bit more tea into the mix until we've got a nice consistency of colour and tea leaves. And once we're mixed thoroughly, we're left with these 3 neat looking pots. And what we can do with this now is tip them out onto a baking tray and put them in the oven to dry out. And while we're waiting for that to dry, we're going to get some sea foam. Now, sea foam is a natural product. You can buy it online. I got mine from a company called Green Stuff World, but there are lots of other suppliers. It's a natural product, as I say. It resembles trees and small shrubs as it comes as a plant. You can also get them as seeds to grow your own. They are quite difficult to grow, but I find them extremely useful, and you get quite a lot in a single packet. It tends to stretch quite a long way. Now on their own they represent little saplings, but with a bit of careful adjustment, as I'm going to do now, we can make a slightly bigger tree. So I'm just going to select this piece, take off the lower pieces, and I'll select a few more bits and pieces from what I've got left, and we can start building up a bit of a structure here. Some of the pieces end up being a little bit bent just due to the way that they're grown and also the way they're packaged. Just careful bit of twisting and shaping gets me the type of shape that I want. I'm going to glue that piece on there now just to add a little bit of extra thickness and depth to it, and I'm going to do that using some super glue. Super glue is perhaps the best medium for gluing these trees together, but it does take a little bit of doing. It helps if you have some activator spray, but what I tend to use as a substitute is some bicarbonate of soda. Just get a little bit of that powder and sprinkle it on into the gaps. As you can see, this is from Morrison's, but if we just put some super glue onto the gaps, the runnier stuff tends to be a little bit better in terms of setting, but I'll just put some super glue here between the two pieces that I've just put on, and then I'm going to sprinkle some bicarbonate of soda on, and that will solidify and hold the thing together. It also gives it some nice texture, and if you're not too careful you end up super gluing your fingers to the trees, so you've got to be really, really careful, especially when you're playing around with super glue. I'll just trim the excess off at the bottom there, leaving a bit of a stalk on there for propping it into the eventual place that it's going to go. A little bit more foliage here to bulk out the sides. I've just got the tree a little bit off camera there, rookie mistake. And yeah, another little piece that was going in there. That's starting to look nice now. That bit's a bit too long, so I'm just going to snip it off with a pair of scissors. Now here it's a little bit too thin in terms of trunk, so I'm going to bulk it up with a little offcut of plant, sea moss, and sea foam. Not sea moss. Sea moss is something completely different. Sea foam, so we'll just put a bit of super glue onto that trunk there and stick that in place. Activator would have helped so much better, but we're going to use some bicarbonate of soda here to solidify that joint, and as I say, it does add a little bit of added texture, closes that gap between the two pieces, and will give us something nice to work with. I am starting to stick my fingers to the trunk there. Anyway, through the medium of time, we've gone out into the garage and given this an undercoat of black and white. It probably could have done with a grey. If you've got a grey, that's a much better colour to use. I'm going to use a medium brown now to paint the trunk. Just giving it a quick coat here. This is not the final colour, it's just a base coat. You don't see many trees that are pure brown. This just gives me something to work from. Just making sure it goes into the branches up there. And I'm going to give it a little bit of grey dry brushing. So I actually missed out the grey dry brushing here. So if you can just imagine that I have given this a dry brush of this medium grey colour, and now I'm going to run over it with the good old-fashioned shade paint called Null Oil. This is just going to darken off those little areas of relief and texture. Everybody knows that trees aren't really brown, they're usually shades of grey. And here we go with the hairdryer, an excellent technique for speeding up the process here. So we just use a hairdryer to dry off the paint, ready for the next stage. Moving into the spray booth now, I'm just going to give this a coat of hairspray. This is just a cheap hairspray. It's an excellent adhesive for scenery. It's only a temporary adhesive, it's not permanent adhesive. It is actually water soluble, so it's always a good idea to top up with a spray varnish. So now I'm going to use these three colours that I've pre-mixed with a tea and use it to sprinkle gently over the areas where I've put the hairspray adhesive. Another coat here now after the first coat of tea leaves, our new foliage. This is the medium orange, having started off with the green. It's not really a green after it's come out of the oven. It's looking there. All the colours are looking a little bit muted, but that's a good autumnal shade. I think if I was going to do this again, I wouldn't have sped the process up and just let them dry naturally. but in this current weather it's going to take quite a long time to dry. So building up the layers gradually, starting off with the sort of orangey green colour, then the mid-orange, and then finally a highlight of the lighter orange. Just like I say, building up some texture with various highlights as well, and then another seal with the hairspray and a little bit more orange. And now I'm going to stick this onto the base. You might recognise the base from another video. I'll just put the link up in the corner there. This is how to build a stone wall. So I've drilled a hole ready to accept the tree and just stick that in place with a spot of super glue. Oops, just slipped out of my hand there. And what I'm going to do next is add a little bit of colour highlights just to lighten off some of those areas there that are looking a bit too dark. So I'm bringing out my medium rust colour again and this Citadel layer paint, a bright yellow, and with a paintbrush I'm just going to dot on some bits of colour. Starting off with the orange, I'm just going to dot some little highlights just here and there all around the edges. Just highlighting the odd leaf or two, maybe a little bit too much there. It's just giving it a little bit of interest. And then finally we'll highlight with the bright yellow. Again, just adding that little bit of extra highlight for those lovely autumnal shades. At this point now I can start adding some glue to the base. This is going to be where the fallen leaves are going to go. So just dot some PVA all around the base and over the top of the wall, all the little areas where you're wanting the fallen leaves to appear. And I'm just going to sprinkle some of that medium orange all around the base. It does make a really excellent foliage medium. I know a lot of railway modelers use tea leaves for sort of grassy soil areas, but I think this does make a really realistic looking sort of dead foliage. Of course you can play around with all kinds of colours and shades to get what you want. Over here we're going to go just around the base of the tree and around the other side of the wall just to make a complete diorama. It's not just one side, it's like a fully made up base. Like I say, this stone wall base diorama is a video I've done previously. I've left the link in the top right corner previously. I'll link to it again at the end if you want to see that being made. But yeah, just finishing off here with some fallen foliage, and that's it, pretty much done now. And it's on to the outside shots. Nothing beats taking a few photographs in the outside daylight. So guys, that's it. That's your autumn tree made from tea leaves. Please let me know in the comments what you think, if there's anything else you'd like to see, and follow me for more. Subscribe, hit that subscribe button guys, and get more content like this. Catch you all later. Thank you for watching.